These are questions 14 through 17 on the Unit 3 test review. It asks you to describe the transformations that occur when compared to the parent function f of x equals x squared. So we're going to look at the changes that occur when we make changes to the original function. So we look at something called the a and the c. So those are the letters that we're going to use to label some parts of the equation, and then we're just going to describe what happens. So a is 1/4. And if you go back and look in your notes, it will tell you different things that happen with a will change the way that the graph opens, closes, moves around on the coordinate plane. Because this has an absolute value of less than 1, this graph is going to get wider. Now, I'm not writing down that this graph opens up because the original parent function also opens up. But if you do write that this opens up, that's not wrong. It's just not an actual change that has occurred from the parent function to the new function. And our c is a positive 3. And when c is a positive number, the entire graph will shift up. In number 15, our a is a -1 and our c is a -5. Now, because our graph is now negative and the original parent function was a positive, we would say that now it's going to open down. But this time the width of the graph is not going to change. It's not going to get wider or narrower because now the absolute value of -1 is 1, and we look for an absolute value that's either bigger than 1 or less than 1 to talk about the graph getting wider or more narrow. Our c number, however, is a -5 this time, and since it is a negative number, that means that our graph will shift downward. So it's going to open down and it's going to move further down on the coordinate plane. Problems 16 and 17 are written in vertex form, so we're not looking for an A and a C, we're actually looking for an A, an H, and a K. So in problem 16, our A is a 4, our H is a positive 6, and our K is a -3. No, I'm sorry, our K is a positive 3. Sorry about that. Our K is a positive 3. So, it's not going to change whether it opens up or down. The A is still a positive number, so it still opens up, so I'm not going to write that down. But my A is now an absolute value of greater than 1. The absolute value of 4 is greater than 1. So, my graph is going to become more narrow. Let's write that so that it's legible. Because my H number is a positive number also, my graph is going to shift to the right. So it's going to shift right. And because my K is a positive number, it's also going to shift up. So, compared to the original parent function of f of x equals x squared, the graph will get more narrow, it will move to the right, and it will move up on the coordinate plane. Now, in number 17, my A is a -1, my H is a -2, and my K is also a -8. Now, when you're looking at this problem, when you're looking at something that is written in vertex form, what you have to remember is that vertex form says A times x minus H plus K. This minus sign and this plus sign are part of the formula. So when you see it written with a plus sign in between the x and the h as opposed to a negative sign, you can change that to a pair of double negatives. And so you would write it as negative times x minus -2. And now this minus sign goes with this 2, and this minus sign is part of the original formula for the vertex formula. And it's supposed to say plus k, so we're going to put plus a -8. So now this minus sign goes with this 8. That's how we get that h is -2 and k is -8. Well, if a becomes a negative number, that means my graph is now going to open down. It's going to change directions. But it's not going to get any more narrow or any wider than it was originally because the parent function was also a 1x. From its original location in the parent function, now because I have a negative h, it's going to shift to the left. So the whole graph would move left 2 spaces. And then the graph is going to shift downward, so it's going to move down 8 spaces. So from the original function, it's going to transform and open downward, and the whole thing is going to move to the left and down on the coordinate plane.